Hi friends! My name is Irina and I work at the National Portrait Gallery, where we share the stories of people who have helped shape the United States. Welcome to Introducing, where we shine a light on some of this country's history makers and their portraits. Just like reading a book, a portrait can tell a story too. This month, we are celebrating 100 years of women being able to vote in the United States. Voting is the process by which a group of people can decide on things fairly when they don't all agree. Each person in this group gets to give their opinion or cast a vote on what they think is best. In the United States, men could actually vote way before women could. And that definitely seems unfair, right? And even when women did get the right to vote 100 years ago, it didn't really apply to all women. Really, only white women were able to freely cast their vote. Native American women, Black women, and women of color were constantly denied their right to vote. This way of thinking is what we call being racist. Being racist is the belief that people with a certain skin color are by birth and nature superior or better than others. But for this week's Introducing, I want to talk about a woman who stood up against these racist laws and fought for her right to vote. Her name is Fannie Lou Hamer. And this is her portrait. This is a photograph of Fannie Lou Hamer, and she is front and center in this photograph. And she's also very close to the camera. We can just about see the top of her shirt and her face and her hat. But let's look at Fannie Lou Hamer's facial expression. Her head is tilted back. Her eyes are looking down, but also straight towards us. And her mouth is open. And when someone has their mouth open in a photograph, sometimes it can mean that they're speaking or singing. Do you think she's doing one of those things? If you could hear Fannie Lou Hamer's voice in this photograph, do you think it would be loud or soft? Well, Fannie Lou Hamer was a civil rights activist. And an activist is a leader who fights for things to be fair and equal for everyone. Fannie Lou Hamer spoke out loudly and fought for voting rights. Under the law, everyone had the right to vote, but often there were other laws put in place that purposely made it extremely difficult for Black women to even register or sign up to vote. For example, they were often required to take a test, a really complicated test, to see if they could read and understand government documents. Fannie Lou Hamer actually took these tests, and they failed her purposely, blocking her right to vote. Upset but determined, at the age of 45, Fannie Lou Hamer decided to get involved, to become an activist, and to speak out against these unjust and racist voting restrictions. And she wasn't alone. If you were with us a few weeks ago, you might remember a story time on a man named John Lewis. He was one of those people who also fought for voting rights. Fannie Lou Hamer wanted to educate people about their right to vote and encourage people to sign up to vote. Unfortunately, it wasn't that easy. Fannie Lou Hamer and many others, like John Lewis, made the racists really angry when they stood up to these unjust and racist ideas. Often, they were called really horrible names, and sometimes they would even get physically hurt. But that didn't stop Fannie Lou Hamer. Can you see Fannie Lou Hamer's facial expression? Her determined glance in her eyes? To me, she looks focused. And together with her open mouth, she looks strong and determined and courageous. What expression do you see in her face? One of the ways in which Fannie Lou Hamer was an activist is that she marched in the streets. She literally walked and spoke out against the racist laws to anyone who would hear her. In this portrait, in fact, Fannie Lou Hamer is marching in a protest that was 3 weeks long. The protest that she's marching in is called the March Against Fear. And Fannie Lou Hamer and many other activists got together and they walked 200 miles to speak out against the unjust and racist laws that stopped Black people from being able to vote. If you look closely in this photograph, can you see the sweat on her face? Sometimes when people sweat, it means that they're hot. Fannie Lou Hamer marched in the south of the United States, and sometimes it is hot down there. But to me, the sweat actually makes it look like she's working really hard to ensure that her voice and everyone's voice marching is heard. If you look at this portrait and the background, you'll see other people who are marching with her, and they also have a look of determination, maybe a little angry, but they're strong and they're courageous, and they're standing up for their rights. One of the other ways that Fannie Lou Hamer spoke up for voting rights was at large gatherings. People would come together for these gatherings to discuss important topics. Sometimes people there didn't care about what she was trying to say, or they disagreed on the issues, or they were just racist. They didn't like Fannie Lou Hamer because of her skin color. But she made them listen. And it's thanks to Fannie Lou Hamer and other activists that voting rights for Black women and other people of color did improve. But even today, they are far from perfect. The great thing is, though, that if people like you and me continue to speak up for the rights of others, like Fannie Lou Hamer did, we can continue to make this world a better place. So thank you so much for listening to my story on Fannie Lou Hamer this week, and we hope to see you right back here next Wednesday for a new one.